The nominations are now out for the 2026 IPF Classic Powerlifting World Championships. So let's go over, kind of see what's going on as far as nominations and what kind of early predictions we may have for the World Championships. So I will go ahead and share my screen so you can kind of see what I'm seeing when it comes to nominations. And I will throw into the description down below how to get to this page in case you want to go and look at the nominations on your own. So first thing we can do is look at this summary over here, and then we can see on the women's side we have 179 athletes, including reserves, and on the men's side we have 199 athletes, and then you can look at the other breakdown as well. When it comes to the nominations, in the preliminary nominations, which goes 60 days out, which is why they just were due now, and then the final nominations will be 21 days out. And you can go here and look by nation if you want to, or I will jump over here to the first list. We can go by weight class. And so here you can see the deadlines for preliminary nominations, final nominations. What they mean by preliminary nominations is that every nation has to submit their team, both who's actually on the team competing and who's a reserve that may come into place for someone if someone has to drop out. So all the names here that are in the nominations are ones that are going to be competing if they stay on the list, or they could be moved from the reserve to the competing team, or they can be removed if they're not competing, but no one new can be added. So you can't hide someone in and secretly bring them in. So everyone that's here are the only people that have the possibility of competing. No new lifters can be added. So let's go through first here on the women's side in the 47 kilo class. You can see we have 19 athletes competing, pretty stacked 47 kilo class this year. And you can see even for kind of 400 kilos and up, you can see the nominated totals. We have 7 athletes right now nominated 400 kilos and up. So that's a pretty stacked 47 kilo class. And at the very top, we can see Tiffany Chapon from France with 451, Leanne Lee from USA with 440, and Emily from Canada at 436. So that is going to be a big battle there in the 47s. I know we've previously over the years kind of talked about getting the top 3 in the 47s up to 400 kilos or above. Now we have 7 athletes that can potentially be getting 400 kilos or above just based on nominations. Maybe some of the other athletes are getting stronger as well. And then for the podium, we may be looking at 430 and above, 440 and above, who knows? But this is a very stacked 47 kilo class, and it's going to be a epic battle here between France, USA, and Canada. Right now, look at the nominations, and we can see when it comes to the squat, Tiffany Chapon's the clear winner based on the nominations. Same on bench press, so she's kind of like the subtotal athlete, whereas Leanne and Emily have the bigger deadlift, so they'll be trying to pull for placing and trying to potentially pull for the win there at the end. Tiffany's looking very strong though, and she seems like she's executing more attempts in competition, so she's probably the favorite on nominations and also probably the favorite in a lot of people to win this, but it's obviously going to be a big battle. So now let's go into the 52 kilo class. Here we have a little bit more of a gap. We can see Megan Lee from New Zealand at 42, and then, like an 18 kilo drop here for Ploon from Netherlands. But we can see that second and third could be close. We have Catherine here from Canada at 455, so they're within 10 kilos of each other. So we could have a battle there for second and third, even if there's not going to be a battle for first. But again, pretty stacked weight class, having 24 athletes here. You can see 15 of them are at 400 kilos or above. When we have, some lifters that are close, like here, the 464 and the 455, and then a couple of athletes here in the 430s that could be battling there for top 5, or maybe if someone in second or third has a bad day, they can come in and steal a podium spot. But here, Megan Lee is probably going to be the clear favorite, being pretty strong across all 3 lifts and having a pretty big gap here in the nominated total. Looking at the 57 kilo class, we have 29 athletes here, and we can see 450 and above. We have 13 athletes here around 450 or above nominated total, and we have some big names here. We have Sarah Naldi from Italy at 530, then Joy Namani from Great Britain at 520. Then Sav from France at 502. Closely behind her is Kaylee Sue from Netherlands at 496. Close behind her, again, Bobby Butters at 492. And also, world champ and Sheffield champion Evie Corrigan from New Zealand here at 490. Here, Adejoke is a reserve, but if she makes the team, you're at 47. And we have another athlete here, Sopiko from Georgia, also at 47. So very close here from, let's say, third place at 502 down to 8th place at 47. So that's like 15 kilos, which could be, missing your third squat, your third deadlift could make that kind of difference between third and eighth. Going to be a close battle probably between first and second here, Sarah versus Joy at the 520 and 530, and then another battle possibly here trying to get the podium spot or even top 5 between these other athletes. With EV2, who had been competing as a 52, now she's going up to 57. We'll see if not cutting as much weight will help give her like a boost in her squat and bench press to kind of get her closer in that battle as well. And then we have, plenty of strong athletes here. Bai Butter's always a good strong squatter, a good subtotal athlete, versus we can have these other athletes that have like the big deadlifts like Sav with 212.5. So again, you have these battles of like who can build up a good subtotal for the subtotal specialist, and then maybe the deadlifter trying to do big pulls to try and steal podium spots at the end. Next, let's go into the 63 kilo class. This one is pretty stacked as well with a lot of big names. So now we're looking at 34 total athletes. And at the top, we have some killers like Alba here at 582, Meg from USA at 563, Yara from Italy at 542. Right behind them is Leah from France at 536. And even here, Betty Abora from Netherlands at 518.5. And we can see we have 8 athletes at 500 kilos and above. So another pretty stacked weight class. Even though there is some gaps here between like first, second, and third, it may actually be closer for a couple of different reasons. One, with, we've had the change to the bench press with the elbow depth rule, and then now a new update to that as far as the thrusting the upper body or heaving, that kind of stuff. So we don't know exactly yet how referees are going to call this rule and how they're going to call it at bigger championships like world championships. We've only seen a couple national and international competitions so far to get an idea of how it's being called, but there is some variability as well from referees. Maybe there'll be some changes going into world as well if they get some clarity from the technical committee chairman. So I don't know if it's going to affect athletes like Alba and Meg, who are big benchers, and they were using this kind of like sinking into the chest and heaving it up to their advantage to get down to elbow depth. Now they've had to make an adjustment. Is the adjustment enough? Is it going to hurt their benches, or one of them or both of them? So who knows if it's going to affect their benches and if it's going to pull their totals down, or maybe it won't affect them at all. Then, for example, you have athletes like Leah, who is looking, behind the top 3, but also like the nominations don't tell the whole story. Sometimes in previous years, countries will put in fake nominations. Now the IPF is getting better at checking the nominations, but also sometimes the nomination don't tell the whole story, as far as like someone like Leah, who's gone through some injuries with her back and it's affected her deadlift. So she's pulled a lot more than this before. She's pulled like 230 plus in the 63s and in the 69. So potentially, if you're putting 15 kilos back on this total, now you're already in the 550s. If you're putting 30 kilos back on this total, you're now in the 560s. So depending on how healthy she is going into this competition and kind of how strong her deadlift is, then she could be vying for a top 3 spot with these other athletes that are all battling out, obviously, for the podium as well. And then you have killers like Betty, who have, the biggest deadlift of the group. And so she can kind of wait it out. If she makes some PRs on squat and bench press, see how things are playing out, and kind of put in the final deadlift to try and maybe steal a spot, or just go for like a world record and a deadlift medal if she can't steal a spot. Into the 69 kilo weight class we go. And this one, we have another stacked weight class. You can see we have 29 athletes here. At the top, we have Carola Gara from Italy at 588. Just below her, we have Chandler Babb from US Virgin Islands at 570. Tying her in this nominated total is Janae Kovacs from USA at 570. And then behind them, we have Marie Jose from Netherlands at 552, Annie Nelson from Great Britain at 550, Marta Jenner from Norway at 550, even down here, Jordan Bright from Ireland at 540, and Anne Dorina from France at 540. So, again, some areas in the placings where the totals are tight. And so, for example, we could see a battle of the top 3, being 588, 570, 570. You have athletes like Janae, who have been getting strong very quickly. She's a very young athlete. You can see she's younger than everyone else kind of here in this group. And so she's getting stronger and stronger every competition, gaining more confidence, getting more experience. And so who knows, is she going to be at 580 by the time Worlds comes around? Is she going to be at 590 by the time Worlds comes around? With Carola, also, again, the bench rule, we'll see whether it affects her at all, how they're calling the elbow depth, that kind of stuff. So, could be a little bit of volatility there with her bench press. And so that's going to be a close battle for top three. And then you have all these athletes, just below them at 552 to 540 that could steal a spot if someone screws up, if someone bombs out or anything like that, or if they've gotten considerably stronger. But even if they don't, it's so difficult now to win the world championships. It's getting more and more difficult to get top three at the world championships. But athletes should be able to take pride in, getting top five or getting top 10 at a stack world championship like this. So even if they can't get top three, being able to battle it out with these other athletes from, let's say, fourth place down to eighth or even ninth place and be able to say, hey, I got fourth, or hey, I got top five, that's a big thing as well. And also there's the individual medals that they can be fighting for. In the 76 kilo class, not as much of a battle here on paper. You never know what happens in real life, but Crandon Wofford from USA has gotten stronger so quickly from her last competition and put up these huge numbers that you can see now it's like a 40 kilo gap between her and the nominated second person, Zuzana from Poland. So there may not be a battle here for first. As long as Crandon comes in healthy, does her thing, executes, she's going to be kind of doing her own thing and chasing bigger numbers, like chasing world records, chasing maybe best lifter, those kind of things. So she kind of has potentially her own goals in mind, depending on how healthy and strong she comes in. But if she's coming in with 629 or more, she's kind of going to be running away with this. But then beneath her, we do have some athletes that are close. So like I said, we have Zuzana at 586. Then we have Bruna from Brazil at 568. Just below her, Clara Peyrot from France at 567. Just below her, Mara from Germany at 565. Basically tying the same total, Bettina from Great Britain at 565 as well. So again, another tight pack there, and that could be a battle for silver medal if they're getting stronger and Zuzana slips up. If not, if there's a gap there, then again it's a battle for third, because you have these four athletes here within 3.5 kilos of each other. Okay, as we go down to the 84 kilo class, we can see we have 30 athletes in 84 kilo class, pretty stacked weight class here as well. And we have a little bit of a battle going on here with Carlina Tongatea from New Zealand moving from the 76 kilo class up to the 84 kilo class to give a challenge to Amanda Lawrence from USA, who's the champion of the 84 kilo class for many, many years, since I believe 2019. So she's just dominated the 84 kilo class. No one has really been close to her. But now Carlina comes in nominated 20 kilos behind her. So giving her a little bit of pressure. Now, again, 20 kilos is a big gap, but that gap could be covered if Carlina maybe tries to fill out the 84s. Maybe she can bump up her squat and bench press a lot, which are, more affected by gaining or dropping in body weight compared to deadlift. And then Amanda has to come in, healthy, has to come in on point, can't hold back too much, because if she starts losing kilos on each of her lifts and Carlina starts improving on a couple of her lifts, then that 20 kilos can close very quickly. Could be interesting there. Right behind them, Ziana from Great Britain is at 607. She has a monster deadlift, so if anyone slips up, she can come in and steal a position. We have Nicolette from USA as well at 600 kilos, so she's kind of close there as well. And you may also see here that we have two athletes from USA in the same weight class. So every country may do their team selection differently. In US, will go and look at the national champions and the people who compete at Sheffield. And if they hit a minimum total, they get the first invite. But not everyone accepts their invite. Some people decline it if they have scheduling issues, if they have monetary issues, if they have injury, different things like that. So if we go real quick back up to the 57 kilo class, we'll see that there's no one from USA here in the 57s. And so the champion for the 57s, Natalie Richards, declined the spot for whatever reason. And so because she declined the spot, there's one additional slot now for USA. And based on the alternate list, they have Nicolette here going on the team. So now we have two people from USA that could be battling it out for top 5 and maybe even podium here in the 84 kilo class. Then finally, we have the 84 plus kilo class. We have 13 athletes here, and the top 2 are the ones that we've been seeing going back and forth for a couple of years now at the World Championships and at Sheffield, which is Sonita from Belgium. She's nominated at 751, and Brittany from Canada nominated at 732.5. So this has been a good battle between the two at different championships. Like I said, it kind of comes down to, if Sonita is making her squats and she's making her deadlifts, then she could be putting up a big total and kind of pulling away with it. If she has maybe some kind of issue, or if Brittany's getting stronger and her deadlift's getting stronger, maybe she can chase her and beat her. So that would be an epic battle there between the two, as we've had at a couple of championships. And then you can see for third and fourth place, we have two athletes from Great Britain. That will be close, 671 and 662. And also Bonica here from USA at 662. And then as a reserve right now, Mackenzie from Canada at 660. So then we can have a separate battle here of these four athletes battling it out for the podium. And we'll see if this lifter from Canada makes it on the team, or if they don't, then we'll still have a battle between the two Brits and even Bonica in there, who is a multi-time world champion with lots of experience and should be coming in there strong, ready to fight for a podium spot. Really good battle there in the 84 plus. And so now we can switch over to the men's side and take a look at what's going on there, starting off with the 59 kilo class. This is one of the upcoming weight classes. It's been getting more and more exciting over the years as we get some bigger names in the 57 kilo class, putting some bigger totals, making it as far as a battle with the depth in the 59s, but also trying to chase Sergey Fedosenko's world record total. So you can see in the 59s here, we have 19 athletes. At the top, we have Michael from USA with 651. Right behind him, Ivan from Spain with 642. And then Antoine from France at 628. If we keep going down, we have Mohammed from Libya at 615. Below that is my lifter Kweku, representing Ghana now at 605. And then from Sri Lanka, we have Pradeep also at 605, Franklin Leon, a veteran from Ecuador at 602. And then we even have a couple athletes at 600, David from Canada and Yasutaka from Japan. So we have 9 athletes at 600 kilos and above. So that's very exciting. All the way up here to, getting into the 650. So this is going to be a good battle. It depends on, the 59s, kind of how much weight they're cutting, how fast the session could be for the big deadlifters, who can execute on the day, to see what kind of totals do we see. Do we see like multiple lifters going above 630 or 640, or are they all going to fall around maybe 620 to 630? And then we'll see, who can come in and maybe steal a spot from the top 3 from these guys that are at 615, 605. But it's going to be a good battle. Looking at deadlifts, for example, we can see Michael here at 301. So that's a big deadlift. You can see quite a bit above everyone else. And so that obviously can give him an advantage. I think maybe people will have Michael as the favorite going into this championship, but obviously anything can happen on the day of if he's not executing. Going into the 66 kilo weight class, we have Shell from Norway coming back down. He bounces between the 66 and 74 and has even done some 83 kilo class competitions. But here he's decided for now to get nominated in the 66s with the 782 total. Behind him is Joe Jordan from US Virgin Islands at 720. Then we have Kyoto from Japan at 717. Austin Nikolai from USA at 710. And then you can see a number of athletes here at 685, 660. And then I want to point down here at 15th place also to be mindful of Kasem Sand, who is a 66 kilo lifter, has tried going down to 59s. For now is nominated coming back up to 66s. With his total, because you have to pick your nominated total based on a competition you've done in a certain time frame from last year's World, so you can't just pick whatever numbers. So his nominated total is lower, but it's not showing what his actual capabilities potentially are. If he's healthy, if he fills out the 66s, obviously he can be much higher. So he can be in contention for top 5. He could be contention top 10, top 5. It's going to be harder for him to get to top 3 just because those are big numbers. And also, if he ends up in a different flight because his total is nominated lower, then obviously all the athletes will know what number they have to beat. So right now he's on the edge because he's 15th. And if this reserve athlete doesn't end up making the team, then he'll be 14th, and that might be the first flight will be 14 lifters, so maybe that will be enough to get him into the main flight. But if they break it up a different way, or if he's lower, then that could potentially put him in a earlier flight, and then all the athletes know what to do to beat him. But We'll see what happens. But this is going to be another good battle. It depends on how hard the cut will be for Shell, how strong he comes in, how much stronger guys like Joe Jordan and Kyoto and Austin Nikolai come, if they can give him a challenge. If they're pushing, 730, 740, 750, maybe Shell has gone a little bit weaker than the 782, then maybe they can put some pressure on him and steal gold from him. But at least on paper, it looks like Shell is kind of the favorite. And then we'll have a battle here for second, third, and fourth place between these three athletes that are 10 kilos apart from each other. So that will be an interesting battle on its own. And you can see they all have very similar deadlifts at 290, 290, 295. And so that could be interesting as well, where they're all maybe having very similar totals after first, after second, after third. And it's going to kind of come down to which coach picks the right weight, which athlete executes well, body weight, lot number advantage, all those kind of things. So that should be a fun battle there. In the 74 kilo weight class, not as much of a battle. We have 27 athletes, but the favorite at the top here, you can see Austin Perkins from USA, 891, and then it drops down for Balthazar from France at 800. So quite a bit of a gap there from first to second, and then quite a bit of gap from second to third. You have Chun Chia from Chinese Taipei at 767. So it may not be as interesting of a weight class as far as the battle for first or the battle for second, but it looks like there will be a battle for third, because if we look at the nominations below Chun Chia, you can see Clinton Lee from Singapore, just 1 kilo behind, Jacob from Canada, just 3 kilos behind that. Luke, also from Canada, has the same exact total as his teammate. And so we could have a battle between these four athletes that are in the 760s trying to vie for that third spot. And then you never know. This athlete from Australia has 750.5. Maybe he gets stronger and he's in the 760s as well. So again, these are just things as far as previous meet results. We never know what's going to happen in the future, which is why we compete. So that'll be an interesting battle there for the bronze medal in the 74 kilo class, even if first and second are kind of runaways. Threes should be an interesting battle of some familiar names. We have Joe Borenstein from USA here at 892, then Endurance from Great Britain at 872, also from Great Britain at 842, and Aharo from Hungary at 832. Again, maybe some bigger gaps here in the totals, but as we start getting into these bigger numbers and absolute weights, they're taking bigger jumps from, let's say, second or third attempt. So if they miss their third, that could be a 10 kilo difference on the squat. If they miss their third deadlift, that could be 10, 12 and a half, 15 kilo difference that they lose out on. So then an athlete can come and beat them, especially the ones that have the bigger deadlifts, like Anaharo can always put on some big number at the very end to try and pull for placing. So even though it looks a little farther in the nominations, it could actually be closer in this battle here. And the favorite here, Joseph Borenstein, will really have to execute well to kind of hold on to that lead and not have these guys try and pull for the win. We have some other great names further down the list as well. For example, lots of people know Kafui from Canada here at 815. He could be getting stronger since he kind of had to just pull whatever he needed for placing at nationals, because I watched that Canadian National Championship, is that he potentially actually has more than him. So he could be in the 820s, 830s. We have Tim Monagatti from New Zealand at 800. He could be potentially putting up bigger numbers as well. Let's move on to the 93 kilo class. And so this one maybe isn't as stacked as it's been in previous years. We do have 33 athletes, but we still have some good names. We have new names as well, like Will Ball here from USA at 930. He's the favorite. And then we have returning champ Emil Krastev from Bulgaria at 920. Gustav Hedlund, also a champion from Sweden, at 910. So we have two returning guys, two veterans that have been battling out in this weight class for a number of years, and Emil and Gustav. And then the newcomer here, Will, who's also nominated at the top, but only 10 kilo difference between those guys, and also then 10 kilos here for the Algerian. So again, those 10 kilos can easily be made up in one attempt. And so all four of these athletes will really have to be on point to be able to try and get the gold medal. Will Ball had an incredible nationals, executing very well. And so if he can bring that into Worlds and do that again, then I think he's going to be the favorite for a lot of people, and he's going to be the one who wins. But if he slips up for whatever reason, if something is off on that day, there's obviously these guys that are veterans that are big lifters that can catch up and beat him. All right, let's jump down to the 105 kilo class. This one should be a good one as well. We have 31 athletes nominated. At the top, we have Anthony McNaughton from USA at 980. Below him is Anatoly from Ukraine at 980, and then Anatoly at 940. Emil Norling from Sweden at 935. Liam from France at 927. Legion from Denmark at 922, and even a couple guys here at 915 and 917.5. So again, a little bit of gap here. Anthony McNaughton is the champion and is the favorite and has a pretty big total here. So as long as he can kind of stay where he is at 980, I don't think Anatoly is going to catch up to him. Anatoly has had some issues with grip on his deadlift, so maybe if he's able to figure that out, he can maybe bump up his total into some bigger numbers, 950s, 960s. But I think it's still going to be difficult for him being like 20 kilos behind on bench to be able to catch up. But he also has to watch out for the guys nominated behind him, because if he has grip issues and he misses one or two deadlifts, which he's done before, now his 940 can turn into 930, 920. And now all these guys behind him that are around 920, 930 can catch up to him. So that'll be an interesting weight class. Even if no one can catch the Anthony was nominated first, is the battle for second and third place between all these other guys. Then we have the 120 kilo class. It'll be another interesting one. We have 33 athletes, and we have finally the return of Rondell Hunt from Trinidad and Tobago, nominated at 1025. We have Etienne from Lebanon returning with 984. We have Ashton Rauschka going up to the 120s from USA at 983. Joseph McDonald from Trinidad as well at 975. Joshua from Great Britain at 965. And even a couple guys here in the 950s. So this one should be an interesting battle as well, with Rondell Hunt kind of being the favorite on paper. But, he's returning to the World Championships, and so we'll see how he executes with travel and competing on the world stage. And also he's had to pull out of some competitions due to some injuries, so it just depends on whether he can stay healthy, get stronger, and also be able to come and execute somewhere around 1,000, because he has some killers behind him like Etienne, who has a 400 plus kilo deadlift, who could obviously try and pull for placing and steal a spot from. You have guys like Ashton Rauschka, who has a 400 plus kilo squat, so he can really set the tone at the beginning. He's had some issues with his pec, which has held back his bench press, but if he can get that stronger, that'll help him a little bit. And also maybe filling out the 120 kilo weight class a little bit more will help him bump up his squat and bench press more to be able to get him closer and closer to the 990s, 1,000 kilo mark, and put pressure on these other guys. And then you have all these other guys as well who have big numbers all around that can challenge for first place or even the podium if Rondell comes really on form. So this should be a really good battle here for, you can even say like the top 8 could be battling out for the podium, and even the top 5 or top 4 could be battling it out for first place. And then finally we have the 120 plus kilo class. We have 28 athletes, so that's actually a pretty big year for the 120 plus kilo class. And we have multi-time champion Jesus Oliveira from USA nominated first with his 1110. Behind him we have AJ Sharma from Great Britain at 1032, and then Cenk from Turkey at 1015. So we have 3 guys over the 1,000 kilo mark for their nominations. Just below that we have Ray Bowring from Great Britain at 997, and Victor from Ukraine at 993. So those guys are kind of in contention as well for 1,000 kilo plus. And even Timur from Georgia has put up some big numbers before. He tried to kind of go down a weight class. Looks like he might be coming back up. So he's at 985. So his numbers could get a boost if he starts putting some of his body weight back on it as well. So you could potentially have like 6 athletes going over 1,000 kilos. And so that's going to be crazy. And if you've been watching, any of the world championships, the 120 plus can oftentimes be the most volatile, because you don't know what's going to happen as far as squat depth. You don't know what's going to happen as far as like deadlift lockouts and grip issues. You don't know what's going to happen as far as the speed of the competition affecting these bigger athletes. So you're going to see more volatility, and also because there are more absolute weights where these athletes are doing 400 kilos plus on squat and deadlift and 250 plus on bench press, is that missing out on a third attempt could take, 15 kilos away, 17.5 kilos off of your total, and all of a sudden now someone can catch up to you and beat you very quickly. That will be interesting to see here, that even though there are some big jumps here, going from 10:15 to 10:32 could mean the difference in one attempt. And even like 9:97 to 10:15 could mean the difference of one attempt. And then all these guys at 9:97, 9:93, 9:85, 9:80 could be fighting it all out there for placing. So that's going to be a good one. Obviously, if Jesus comes strong and he executes, especially his third squat and his second deadlift, let's say, he could potentially lock it up there. But if he, for some reason, has any issue and is off on like a squat and is off on a deadlift, maybe someone can catch him. But if no one catches him, he's a veteran, he knows what he's doing, he can execute on the day, and he gets the gold medal. There could still be a battle for silver and a battle for bronze with these other guys. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed this breakdown of the preliminary nominations for the Classic World Championships that just came out. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments below. Like I said, I'll have all the links so you can check on it and see all the nominations as they change, and you can see we're 36 days out from the final nominations. So I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye.